Welcome to the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast. I'm Oisin Langan. No Premier Division, no problem. We've got lots of reaction to come from here in Markets Field, where Treaty United held Cork City to a scoreless draw. Now, they might argue with that description of holding Cork City to a draw because they had their chances, just like Cork City did. We'll have more from this game in a few minutes. A huge crowd at it, by the way, 3,146 people. Premier Division wise, we'll be chatting with former St. Pat's, Shamrock Rovers and Bohs goalkeeper Barry Murphy on the season so far and what he makes of Alan Reynolds potentially going to Bohemians. Now, before we get the reaction from here, let's run through the scores in the First Division tonight as I speak to you. They're actually still playing between Athlone and Longford Town. There's 12 minutes gone in injury time there, where it's 3-3. Bray Wanderers losing 4-3 at home to Wexford. That sounds like it was quite the game. Cove Ramblers losing 2-1 at home to UCD. Finn Harps scoreless with Kerry. And here at the Markets Field, Treaty United 0, Cork City 0. Now, before we get to the post-match reaction here in the Markets Field, I want to tell you about Luke Jordan and Donal Ryan's conversation with Stephen Beattie on the Extratime.com League of Ireland podcast. It is very much worth listening to. He went through the pain barrier to get out onto the pitch, and I never really realised it. I'm not sure many people did, but his thoughts on John Caulfield are very interesting. His thoughts on his own career as well, going to America, going to Iceland, going to Puerto Rico, and going to Sligo Rovers, all also very interesting. That is well worth a listen, and it's available wherever you get your podcasts or through extratime.com. Right, back to the post-match reaction here in Markets Field. As I speak to you, I don't know who I'll be interviewing yet, if that makes sense. So it'll take me a few minutes to do it, but for you, you're about to hear those interviews right this very second. This is the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast, and I'm sitting in the stand at the Markets Field with Tommy Barrett, the manager of Treaty United, following a scoreless draw with Cork City. I want to talk about the game, but I also want to talk about kind of what's going on here at the moment, because I've seen a lot of things in the First Division in my time, but rarely have I seen 3,146 or 7 people in for a game. That's what was here tonight, and I'm led to believe that is a regular thing. I've rarely seen the manager stopped by a load of kids. It's normally players, but I've rarely seen the manager stopped by a load of kids for photos and autographs. And now I can't put it into words, Tommy, but I just get a feeling that something is happening here. I don't know what that is, but I've been here through various iterations of Limerick League of Ireland football, and I've never felt anything like it at the moment. Would you agree with that, first of all?
Yeah, look, I think we target it to kids. We're getting in a younger cohort of young people. Like, and they're we got to build our fan base, because Oisin, it's been 40 years since we've had any semblance of success, really. Okay, we did, in fairness, in the mid 2010s have a successful period when it was financial backing there, and we got support through the door, but really it wasn't. It was just transient support. I think I'm feeling now is the last 3 games that we've got a lot of young people. We've targeted young people, young clubs, both in the men's and women's games, and they're new fans, and it's the families are coming. Obviously we have the Blue Army lads, they're there a long time. There's a core support around 500 and others on top of them. But certainly there is a good bud. But results help. Results are important. But there's definitely a better social media drive. I think young people look at social media these days. Our social media team are fantastic what they do. Both Mary and Ciara and Sean O'Brien have really, they're the board in Ireland at the moment, and they've driven it. And obviously with the backing from the North American, from the Canadians in Vancouver, in Tricor, they've done given the financial backing as well. They haven't gone mad, which is great. We want to build this. We're getting out into the communities more. We're running camps and clinics with young people. Ciara is big in that. That's her background, and that all helps. It helps get the crowds through the door, and I think that's about the crux of it, really. It's just connecting with the communities. I think connecting with the clubs, connecting with the communities. And making it an enjoyable place to come and watch a game.
It might seem like a silly question, but you've reverted to blue, which is always kind of Limerick's colour in League of Ireland. Why was that, and how important has that been?
Well, Ciara would have taken feedback from the fans. They wanted it. They wanted to go back to blue. They felt that that's the traditional colours, and they were adamant that they wanted. She listened to them, and I think that helped. I like the red and white actually. I just like the jerseys, the red and white stripe. There was a good look about them, but I like the blue as well. And in fairness, it's a fantastically designed jersey this year. By Cos. What's his name again?
I'll Google it and insert it into the podcast later.
At Watford. He was here a few weeks ago. My head is melted after the second
half.
So he's Kieran's friend to play with Watford. He was here a few weeks ago. Fantastic fella. He's a great fella altogether, but it's after escaping me because
American lad.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't think of the name.
Jesus. It'll come to me now as soon as you're gone.
Yep.
So he's done a great job in designing the jersey and getting the watermark in of the castle and the whole lot. So it's been fantastic. So look, it's been a great start, but it's only a start. Like, there is always a drop off in the summertime because people tend to go on holidays, and there's a lot of Limerick people that go to like West Clare or North Kerry and have mobile homes down there. So we'll let's see how that goes when the Friday nights kick in there. Might be something to we have to have a look at. It might be Thursday nights or something, I don't know, but we'll see. Will it drop? I'm hoping it won't. But obviously this time of year there's not much else happening as well. I think that you take that into account without being a negative Nelly on it now. I don't want to be that, but certainly it helps. But look, I think the main part is those connections in the community, keeping the fans happy, and building those strong links, I think, and we have to keep doing that.
What's changed for you in a positive sense? Because sometimes when new owners come in or whatever, the current manager kind of nearly frets a bit, but if anything, your position seems to have been strengthened, which is a really good thing and deserved, obviously, given the results that you've produced over the years.
Well, look, I think they know I can work with probably a low budget. It's still not very high. We're not going breaking the bank. We have an extra few quid, and we're trying to professionalise it, growing year on year. In fairness, the previous board done that as well. There was incremental year on year with the previous board as well, and they've done a really good job to bring it as far as they could. And also our academy players are starting to develop more. There's like I consider myself a developer as well, even though we need to get results. We brought a 17-year-old. I think Sean is 17 anyway, still under 17. Could be still 16 actually on tonight. And he nearly set up Stevie for the winner. The likes of him and Robbie Lynch is only 17 as well, the right back. So
is he?
Yeah, he's only 17.
Wow.
Robbie.
I never realised he doesn't look it.
No, he's a top class lad. Robbie, he's on the Irish Schools team as well, and he's a centre back by trade, but we played him right back. Like, this is his second year playing with us. He played 10 times last year, I'd say. So we have really good young lads coming through as well, but we need to give them better training facilities and better access to better programs, and I think Ciara has recognised that, and we're developing that. We've upped our own training, the women have upped their training, and we're trying to make it more professionalised, but build it slowly. We're still very much part-time, but we're hoping. We've a few young lads on pro contracts this year, and we've a few lads going across the water. Jay Demerit's the man's name.
Jay Demerit. There we go. I knew you'd remember it.
Yeah.
I will talk about the game in just a second, but during the week you retweeted an article written by Declan Bougue about some toxicity that exists within soccer at the moment.
Yeah.
Why did you feel it was important to retweet that, and what do you think the issues are, and are they easily solvable, or are they something that we really need to move to tackle before they get away from us?
Look, for me it's a societal thing, and it's a lack of leadership by sometimes managers. They don't call it out. You got to call out your fans if they're misbehaving. You got to call out your players if they're misbehaving. Clubs got to do it. Clubs got to be stronger. Boards. Sometimes everyone just blames the FAI, but clubs got to take control of that. I'm all about passion, right? You see it here tonight. We were passionate. It was a passionate game, no issue. But if there's fans singing stuff, and I heard of some of our lads singing stuff tonight, and I wasn't happy with it, and I'd be calling that out. That should never happen. You should never get personal abuse. Look, lads were saying, it doesn't really happen. It happens in GA as well. I don't care if it happens in GA. Well, I do care because it's a societal problem. But my point is, I don't know if it happens in GA because I'm not at GA enough to recognise it. I've seen some videos and it's terrible. I haven't seen too much at rugby, mind, which that'll tell you in itself. I don't want it to be like rugby, and I want the passion like the lads. But you can sing songs and you can roar and shout. And look, don't get me wrong, I'm no angel. I throw a few F's and blinds, but it's not personal. It's not like I'm not saying you don't know what someone is going through in their life as a player or a referee or an opposition fan, and you don't know how it affects them. So you don't get personal. Of course you go, for fuck's sake or whatever, for F's sake or whatever, right? And all that kind of stuff. But it can never be personal. The lads were calling the referee name there tonight. I'm not happy with that. I think it's and I would agree with Declan on whether he was coming from a GA aspect or whatever he was coming from. It doesn't matter.
He called out GA in it as well, and he's a GA man.
I think he did.
I think it was a fair article, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And people were overemphasising that, and they're making.
They read the headline. They didn't read the article.
They're us against them. It wasn't us against them. He was calling out the GA as well, right? So, but I suppose what he's saying is those silly songs, and then I've seen fellas, and I can say this, but I've seen fellas. I've been called it myself. I've been called and it doesn't really bother me. Oh, I genuinely say that. It doesn't really affect me, but people calling fellas fat paedophiles, do you know, that stuff, abuse with kids around. That's mad stuff. You would not do that walking down the road. And the same lads would go ape, absolutely ape, if you called them, insulted them with the same names. You know, they get violent, a lot of them. So they need to really just cop onto themselves. You can still have the passion. You can still have a bit of banter and still get at the opposition by roaring and shouting. I have no issue with that. But the actual personal abuse and calling referees or opposition players and that, you see that carry on with Liverpool and Man United and mocking people that are dying and all that. Are we going to get to that? Why? It's I just don't get it. I just think it's revolting. It's I'm from the arsehole of my ass, actually. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these lads that hasn't seen everything. I've seen it. I've grown up in a place where people have there's been a lot of trouble and a lot of issues. And I work in community work, and I work at the youth diversion for 10-15 years in community work in the most disadvantaged areas in the country, and you wouldn't get abuse like that walking down. You wouldn't accept it, and you're coming in, and middle class lads a lot of the time, and some working class lads, but across all societal, and I think because they're inside in a mob mentality that they can roar and shout abuse. If it was my young fella, he's 13, and if he was doing it there, he wouldn't come to a match again. And I don't want him seeing that kind of stuff, and I don't want it creeping into a game. I just don't think I still think you can have the passion without that, right? And I know that's a big rant, right? And I know people would say he's ranting on about it, but I'm strong on it and I don't comment much on Twitter, I don't talk much on Twitter, but as guardians of the game, really, and without sounding all airy-fairy about it, we have to call out things like that because it's not acceptable. I just don't think it's acceptable, and that's the bottom line.
I don't think anyone could disagree with what you were saying there. Let's talk about the actual game itself tonight, and a scoreless draw against Cork City. I don't think you were overly happy with me because I thought City had the chances, but you, in fairness, you've outlined the fact that you had the chances too.
Well, we had.
I'm biased, of course.
It sounds like it. We had.
I'm a City fan. Cards on the table.
Of course, I know that. Well, no.
And an idiot.
Well, look, we had the better chances. If you look at it, I think anyone who's watching the game, end this chance, keeper pulls off a really good save. Stevie cleared through. Cork really didn't have any clear-cut chances. The chance at the end where Bulger hits it from distance, and then a few scrambles in the box that we had as well, but the clear-cut chances, I think they'll feel that we definitely had the clearer chances. But in saying that, they probably have more to play and they had more attacks. Well, certainly I think they're a very good counter-attack team, actually. That's when they're most dangerous. Even from looking at them the first few games, they've been really good on the counter-attack, and even tonight we were worried about the counter-attack. But I thought it was a good game. I thought it was a good, proper game. It was a good nil-all. It was as good a nil-all as you're going to see. And we were getting, the disappointed part for me is I felt we could have won it. If we took the chance of one goal, would have won it. They'll probably feel the same, one goal would have won it. And the other disappointment was the sending off. Didn't think it was a sending off. If it was a sending off, right, if he gives that red card, he's got to give it to their lad for the similar tackle on Ushing. There were two very similar tackles. Difference was they were clever than us. They surrounded him, and I think he buckled under the pressure. That can happen as well. I'm not I'd be sympathetic to referees that way. I get it, but you got to get that consistency. Look, he's a good young ref, and he I don't know. I just look back at it again, and I'd like to think I'd be honest in my assessment. I can see where he's coming from. It's the force that Lee goes in with, but their lad went in very similar force and very similar height. Actually, it wasn't very high. The ball was actually there. I actually think it's a foul the other way a lot of them times, because those lads see it coming and jump out of the way. They're jumping over it, and he got up fair quick the minute he saw the red card, so he wasn't injured, you know. Yeah. So it was acute, right? And I just felt the ref fell for it, you know.
And just before I let you go, is the aim to be in the race for automatic promotion or playoffs, or what's? I can tell by the look of your face, you're like, I'll think about that later in the season.
Oh, look, we're avoiding 9th or 10th. Do you know, that's everyone is saying at the start of the season we're 9th or 10th, like so.
Well, what were you saying though?
Sure. I always think we're gonna win every game. Like, sure, I try to win every game. You know, so we're very positive and very happy with the group I have. They're great lads. You look at it every week. We'll hang into games. We're hard to beat. We have very skillful players. We have very lads that will put their bodies on the line. No different in Cork, but obviously Cork are the clear favourites, and you'd expect them to win it. And I'm not just saying that. I think they'd expect to win it, and then it's a toss-up after that. It really is, you know. But we'd like to think we'd be thereabouts, but you can't take your foot off the gas, because we've been unbeaten, but we could go 5 or 6 games and not win a game. Do you know, it's a bounce of ball in the league. It really is, you know. The momentum changes from game to game, and every game takes a life of its own, I find anyway.
Tommy, really appreciate your time. Tommy Barrett, Treaty United Manager, thanks for joining us on the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast.
Thanks Oisin. Take care.
Well, this is the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast, and I'm joined by Cork City manager Tim Clancy, following a scoreless draw with Treaty United. Tim, a good draw or a bad draw?
Listen, I think it's a good point. I go, when you look at it, Treaty have started really well this season. Bit windy this evening. Pitch is very, very good. It's the best one we've been on all year. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I think it'll be a good point when you look back at the end of the season.
You were missing an awful lot of players, and even two of the guys who came on, Cian Bargary and Cian Murphy, the two Keens, these were their first minutes of the season. Now, ideally, I guess from a manager's point of view, you'd want them to have played a bit before you throw them into an environment like this.
Yeah, listen, it's a couple of hundred games into my management career, should I say, and today, including the young lads that are out to 17s who featured this year, and a few injuries and suspensions, with Barry Coffey with 13 players unavailable to start the game, which was mad if you think about it. We had Murph and Cian Bagsy to come off the bench for 15-20 minutes odd, and as you said, that was their first minutes in the season, so I thought he had a good impact on the game as well. So we had Niall, who was centre back, playing in centre midfield beside Greg Bulger as well, starting the game, and I thought, listen, all considered, I think it's a really good point for us, and of the lads that were missing tonight, we should have probably 6 or 7 of them back for next weekend, which is brilliant. Yeah, listen, Josh was excellent. He's been probably a little bit frustrated with not getting minutes so far, and it's just been unfortunate for him that Cahill's been playing in that position. He's been excellent, but I thought Josh was brilliant today. He was very direct. He's loads of energy. He got at the really good positions and put in some dangerous balls throughout the first half, and again, it being his first minutes as well, he tired a bit, so that was good to get Bagsy on the pitch. Listen, looking at it, we probably want to be a little bit more creative, but we still had 2 very good chances in the first half when we broke, and I think Nathan got in. He should have pulled the trigger, and he tried to square it to Jack, and he should have shot, and Evan had a good little play where we advanced into the box, and keeper made a good save, and I think later on we had a couple of dangerous balls into the box, and listen, there's one where Jack Doherty's had a shot and your man's made a great save. The defender it was, but he didn't give a penalty, so we didn't get the rub of things as well. But listen, it's a great point. We'll take a 0-0. It's 5 clean sheets out of 6, which is something really, really pleasing with, and we'll go on to next week.
And the very last one from me, I heard you quoted as saying, enjoy him while you can, regards Cathal O'Sullivan. Now, obviously big clubs in England will be looking at him and probably beyond, but is there any danger you might lose him domestically? Will you be able to hang on to him for the season, do you reckon?
No, there's nobody domestically that's going to take him.
Good.
There's no one in the country will pay the money that would that Cahill's worth, so domestically it wouldn't be an issue whatsoever.
So you have him for the season anyway at the very least?
Yes, we have him for 2 seasons. He's contracted for 2 seasons. Unless the club get a huge fee, he won't be leaving. I think the precedent's been set with the young boy at Waterford. He went to Southampton for $500,000. Well, maybe it's about time League of Ireland clubs started getting the right price for players, and certainly Cathal won't be going anywhere without the equivalent.
Cheers, Tim.
No bother, thanks.
Right, let's talk about the Premier Division now. Before this game at Markets Field, I was joined via Zoom by former Shamrock Rovers, St Pat's and Bohs goalkeeper Barry Murphy, and we discussed the Premier Division season so far, as well as The Dublin derby next Friday night. Of course, Barry has been on both sides of that derby, so we did a bit of a deep dive into what it's like to play in that, especially when you're not in good form. At first, though, we talked about Alan Reynolds' possible appointment by Bohemians, and I asked Barry what he thought when he saw it being reported by Neil O'Riordan.
Yeah, I probably think he's the best candidate out there at the moment. I don't think the Stephen Kenny thing was ever a realistic option for them. It would have been nice for nostalgia reasons and a good appointment from Bohs' point of view, but I don't think that was ever really an option. But Alan Reynolds has got a great pedigree in this league as an assistant manager, as a manager. He's got a experience now on the 21 level as well, so he'd bring a lot to the job. And I think his obvious kind of affiliation with Pat Fenlon will only serve the club well. You need an alignment between the director of football and the manager as well. So I think that was obviously something that was missing with Decky and Pat Fenlon. There might have been a few issues there with clients and things. So you need that alignment right through the club, and that first and foremost, that's what's going to happen when he goes in. And he's obviously won things throughout his career as a player and a manager and assistant manager. So he's a wealth of experience he's bringing to the league as well. He's got a good Bohs team there to start off with as well. So I think it's an obvious and a good appointment for them.
Is that the key thing, his relationship with Pat Fenlon, who people mightn't realise it was appointed after Decky Devine? Now, whether or not that contributed to Declan's ultimate departure, and of course Gary Cronin went with him as well, and he spoke at LOI Central during the week, and he said, look, Declan had approval on signings, and if a player, if he didn't want a player, he didn't have to take a player. But ultimately, it's probably a good thing if the sporting director is there before you and is probably part of your hiring and is someone that you've worked with and that there's a good relationship with.
Yeah, 100%. I think they go hand in hand, really. You see when a director of football is under pressure and managers under pressure and vice versa. So you kind of need them to be 100% in your corner. I don't know what the relationship is like between the two. I'm sure they're both professional. I'm sure it would have been professional all the way through. And as you said, Decky had the final say on signing. So obviously the book stops with him at the end of it. But listen, it helps when you've got a really good relationship with somebody and you know the type of player they're really looking for to bring in. So you're not just scouring the internet the way it is these days on WeScout and things like that, where you know the type of manager he is and the type of player he likes to work with. So I think that's an obvious advantage to start off with. But it's going to be the window in the summer before he gets to bring in his own faces. But his experience will serve him well with working with different types of players coming into the under-21s that he wouldn't get to see all the time. So I think that he'll bring that advantage to the job early on.
We're talking about Bohs gaining Alan Reynolds, but of course Waterford are losing Alan Reynolds, and we've seen the effect he's had at the club. So that's a big blow to the Blues.
Yeah, huge. You saw what happened when he left Derry. They were really on the up and really challenging Rovers, and then they kind of fell off a cliff when he left. So they really struggled to replace him up there as well. I know how highly he was thought of by Rory Higgins, the manager, and the rest of the staff up there. From talking to the goalkeeping coach as well up there, how influential he was in the dressing room. He just has a massive personality around the place as well as his coaching ability. So it was a huge loss to them, and it'll be the same for Waterford. They obviously did really well last year, and having him on the sideline this year, they've started okay as well. So it's going to be a huge loss and not an easily replaced one either.
But your view is Bohs fans are right to be, well, there's a mixed reaction, I would say, from Bohs fans, but they should be excited. They should be happy.
Yeah, he's probably top of the list of the people out there. I don't know who's applied for now from elsewhere, but when you look at the likes of Richard Dunn and lads have gone in for the job seemingly last time and didn't get it, I presume it's the same type of caliber of manager that's gone in this time. And obviously Alan Reynolds with his experience and things seems to be top of that list, and it seems to be a good appointment from both sides really. And I think both fans will be happy enough with it. And he's the type who's going to put 100% into everything, and he's not going to lack for passion. That's for certain. He's got a bit of quality to go with it as well.
Well, let's talk about the Premier Division at large. No Premier Division tonight. That's Friday night as we chat. So it gives us a chance maybe to assess what has happened so far. Just to remind people, Shelbourne are 5 points clear of Derry, who are in second. Sligo Rovers are third. What a start they've had. They're on 9 points. Waterford fourth on 8 points, although it looks like they're losing their assistant manager. We'll see how that will affect them throughout the course of the season. And of course, as we stand, we don't know if that's actually happening. So who knows? Galway fifth on 7 points. Bohs sixth on 7 points. Shamrock Rovers seventh on 6 points. St. Pat's eighth on 6 points. Drogheda United ninth on 4 points. And Dundalk bottom of the pile on 2 points. Barry, what have you made of the season so far with 6 games played by most teams?
Yeah, I haven't seen a season like it. I think it's just echoing what everyone else has kind of said in the league. I haven't seen a season like this in years, where it's usually just 2 people really going the hell for leather at it at the top of the league, and it's really only been Rovers last season. But it genuinely could be any results each week. Bar Shells, who've kind of got a march on everyone at the moment. But when you look at Shells, they got the basics right last year. They got their goalkeeper and a solid defence. Malloy, Barrett, Gannon. Gannon has found form he had at the tail end of his Dundalk career, and this year they've added real quality in like Jarvis and Martin, Burt. It's just how quick they transition from defence to attack and vice versa. It doesn't look like there's going to be an obvious drop off in form from them. But bigger tests will come, obviously, when Rovers and Derry hit form and apply that pressure, winning every week. And they've got the European fixture congestion that will likely come in the summer. But it looks like they're the type of squad that'll embrace the pressure as well. And Damon's obviously taking on his shoulders and embracing it as well. So it's up to Rovers now and Derry to really kick on and put a run together to kind of put them under a little bit of pressure, because you can't let that gap get too big with how defensively solid Shells are. They're going to pick up points everywhere. They're not going to lose 3 or 4 games in a row, it doesn't look like.
Keith Tracy did say last week when I asked him, can Shells win the title? Can they mount a title challenge? He referenced their squad and he said, I'm not sure it's deep enough. Would you agree with those sentiments, or do you think they have enough?
Yeah, I probably would echo that sentiment. It's just their starting 11 is so solid, and they're just so used to playing that way now. Like when you look at how they defend as a 6 and they attack as a 5, but everyone knows their exact jobs. You could see that, but there's an extra energy about them. Like you look at JJ Lunny running into corners last week, and he wouldn't be known for that kind of in his Pats days when I was there with him. He's a really talented boy on the ball, but there's that extra bite about them. Coyle in midfield as well. It's just how can they cope if they lose a big character there? Like if they lose the likes of a Coyle or Jarvis, is that spark gone suddenly then? And then you're eking out results as opposed to winning well the way they are at the moment. But listen, he can play that out any of the teams. Look at how Rovers have struggled now with losing a couple of their key players, and if like Derry lost the likes of Hogan, you can say that about anyone. Nobody really in this league has a squad they can afford to lose players in. So they've got a real chance to do something this year. The kind of real test will be after coming up towards the June, July, if they're still up thereabouts, where you can add a bit of strength to the squad as well. And I'm sure the owners will, seeing that kind of fortune down the road, will not be reluctant to add a few faces to the squad as well. So it looks good for them at the moment.
I don't think we have to actually spend too long on Derry City. We could sum it up by saying keep Pat Hoban fit and you'll be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, I was watching them against Sligo and I thought, here we go again. This is typical Derry the last couple of seasons, underperforming in the place you should be going and getting 3 points. But then you look at how well Sligo have done since, and you probably think that's not a decent point actually. And sometimes you need the look of when a fixture falls too. And last week, Bohs had that obvious spotlight on them after decades going, and you were always going to get a reaction from their players. They were going to turn up, and Derry were at the receiving end of it last year. But you look at Hoban and what an addition he is to the team. He just brings goals. That's what he's about. There's nothing kind of finicky or like he just adds that finish in the box. You can see he's got the most amount of touches of a Derry player, and since last season, he just adds goals. And when you look at how solid they are at the back as well, Brian Maher, they have a good spine team as well, and Derry's always a tough place to go, but they need a run. They need a real run of 9 or 10 games without defeat to challenge. That's something they kind of haven't done in the last couple of seasons, to put any sort of real pressure on Rovers or wherever's top of the league.
It's a huge compliment to Brian Maher as well that he has been called up to train with the Irish squad. I'm sure as someone who is a keeper and has played in the League of Ireland, you're glad for him. And maybe it sends a message about how good he actually is, because there are those who would question him, but John O'Shea's not going to call him up for no reason.
No, it's not a token thing. Listen, Brian's come through the underage system there, and they've seen him the whole way up. He's one they would have earmarked all the way up, and he's fulfilling that potential. I'm sure he's got designs maybe on going abroad eventually, but he's doing his stuff at Derry. He's a different type of goalkeeper. He's the new age type of goalkeeper who can play out from the back. He's so comfortable on the ball. I saw that from a very early age when he was at Pats. But he doesn't lack ambition as well. He could have gone up to Dundalk, but he wanted to go to Bray and get real game time. So he has that ambition about him, and that season at Bray really stood to him. And then he made the move up to Derry, and he's done really well since. But there's other goalkeepers out there. You look at Conor Kearns, you probably feel he could be a little bit aggrieved. He's not in the squad. He's done really well. If you're going on form, he's the form keeper over the last season and a half. So he'd be, I'm sure, looking to kind of make that move into hopefully getting into one of the squads soon as well.
Sligo Rovers, you mentioned them there already. They've had a great season so far, in third place on 9 points. What has John Russell done to make such an improvement on what we've seen so far anyway this season from last season?
Yeah, it's been night and day. I really feared from them in the off season. I thought that there might be a change up there. When the natives get restless up there, they don't do it quietly. And I feared from. I thought if there was going to be a change, it would have been at the end of the season. But listen, he's proved everyone wrong. He's totally turned the team around. They've got a bit of steel about them now. He's implemented a real spine back into the team. McGinty has given him a steady the ship back there. Heinecker, centre half, Mata, Chapman, Hartman. They've added a bit of quality as well, which is they've really attacked teams. They're so unlucky not to beat Rovers a couple of weeks ago, and Sligo's a tough enough place to go as it is, but they've got some brilliant wins. Winning up in Dundalk was a massive win for them as well, and now they just have a confidence about them now. And once the fans start coming back into the showgrounds and make it raucous again, it's a really tough place to go, and long may it continue from John's point of view.
We don't have to take a deep dive into everyone because we've talked about some teams more than others over the last couple of weeks, and look, over the course of the season we will end up talking about everyone. I assume, and you can keep the answer here short, you think Shamrock Rovers had a bumpy start, but that has happened before, and now they're coming good again, and that started last week by beating Galway.
Yeah, it was an underwhelming start to say the least. I think we touched on it last week about how they would have talked about it in the off season about starting well and about Europe, but there are probably two big goals this year was to start really well, and that obviously hasn't happened, and they've obviously struggled with a couple of injuries as well. But the problem for them is that nobody has taken advantage of that over the last couple of seasons, but this time Shells have. But we know Rovers can go on an unbeaten run. They could go on an unbeaten run until the summer and claw those points back, and they've slowly bodies coming back on board as well. But last week was a huge win. It's a galvanising win for a squad to go to Galway and out-battle them really, and get the last minute goal and kind of beat kind of Galway at their own game on a poor pitch. But it's a really good win for them. And look at the likes of Darragh Burns. He's really hit the ground running, and Graham Burke was excellent. Dylan Watts last week. So listen, it's a massive one next week against Bohs, and as you say, Bohs might have that new manager bounce going into a raucous Tallaght Stadium. So you need to be happy with the in that game. And traditionally over the last couple of years, Rovers have done well in the Dublin Derby, so I'm sure they'll be looking for the same next week.
You've experienced the Dublin Derby from both sides. That's not completely out of the ordinary. There's many players who have played for both clubs, but what's it like building up to a Dublin Derby? Is it a different build-up? Do you start thinking about it further out? Like, as we speak, it's Friday, the game's next Friday. Are you already thinking about it? How does it work?
Yeah, it's just massive. It's massive for everyone involved in the clubs. You meet anyone out in the street and it's all talking about the build-up to the Friday, to whichever side you're on. Unfortunately, I was in a Rovers squad and a Bohs squad at the same time, who were both really good and probably on par with each other. The couple of years I played from both sides, the last couple of years, Bohs haven't been kind of up to the standard that Rovers have set, so it hasn't had that same kind of build up. It's Rovers kind of presuming they're going to get the 3 points. That's kind of the way it's been looked at, and you're just kind of hoping from Bohs' point of view that they're going to turn up and give them a match and try and nick something out. But listen, derbies they're totally different. Anything can happen. There's always something. There's always a penalty decision, a red card, and I always thought I think the derbies in Dalymount were always better to be involved in for some reason. They just had more bite about them. It was more like a traditional derby. But I think now that Tallaght has 4 sides, it's going to be a massive occasion, and the crowd will turn up from both sides. I'm sure it'll be a really good occasion.
I'm muting my microphone because I'm right beside the most loud part of the Treaty United support, because as we talk, it's pre-game between Treaty here in Cork City. So I hope you're hearing me okay. When you're going into a Dublin derby like that, is it nearly bigger if you're the team that's struggling? And struggling might be a bit of an exaggeration, but Bohs have been dominated by Rovers in the last number of derbies, and their need is greater, I would suggest, even though Rovers haven't had an amazing start to the season.
I think Bohs have a free hit at Rovers next week. I think with a new manager likely to be in for that, I think this the way they've started, there's no real pressure on them going in. Obviously, results wise, it's so early in the season. I think if it's the latter end of the season and you're needing points for a European position or to stop a relegation battle, I think that's bigger. But they kind of have a free hit going in next week, and Rovers they've been a bit iffy in their performances the last couple of weeks, and they'll be looking to really put in a real performance next week and get a couple of goals and do a job on Bohs next week. I think for their own point of view to capitalise on the win last week, you need to back it up with a convincing win against Bohs next week.
Just as I unmuted, they started singing again. Yes, I want atmosphere in the background, but I also want to be able to hear you. Let's move on to St. Pat's, one of your former clubs. I'm not sure if you stayed up the other night to watch the game against Minnesota. They actually started with a pretty strong team. I don't think there was any changes from the Friday before. Are you concerned with what you've seen, or is it just a matter of they need to tweak a couple of things and maybe up the pace a bit and get those crosses into the box a bit more accurate? Because that's something that John Daly said. I said after the game, do you need to put in more crosses and use Rory Keating that bit better or that bit more? And he said, well, we are getting crosses in, but the quality wasn't amazing. And to be fair to Barrett and Malloy, they dealt with them extremely well last Friday night. And he said that, those are his words.
It was meat and drink to Barrett and Malloy last week. The crosses were coming in from too deep, and when you've got a ball offloaded in like that, they're going to win it all day. They'll be loving that. The two lads at centre back. The balls they don't like dealing with is the ones from the byline that are pulled back towards the 6-yard box, and that's where Keating gets his goals. That's where he's got them over the last couple of seasons. So I'm sure they'll be working on that, and they'll have been working at it when they were away as well. It was a good time for them. Pats for this trip to happen, for them to kind of gel a little bit as a team. They've a lot of new faces, lost a lot of faces last year, and I think John still doesn't know his best formation at the moment. They went from a back 3 or a back 5, as you might say, to back 4 last week, and he probably the same with a new goalkeeper coming in, and lads still trying to gel. So listen, that would have done the world of good going over there and having a bit of time to kind of gel. But now it's back to the league, and it's about results now for them.
Finally, Barry, because we're coming close to kick-off where I am here in the Markets Field in Limerick. I'm not sure if you've seen much of Dundalk and Drogheda this season, but their journey has not been a pleasant one. We'll start maybe with Dundalk. What do you think they need to do, and how quickly do they need to do it, and is that possible?
Well, I think they need to do it really quickly. I think from Stevie's point of view, he'd be so disappointed with how they've started. I know how intense his pre-seasons are, and how focused on stats and different bits of the game he is, and how in depth he goes into things. So he'd be really disappointed that they haven't seemed to have taken it on board. And just they looked so good in the first game against Shamrock Rovers. They looked really well drilled, compact. The new lads made a difference when they came in. But that just went out the window the last couple of weeks. They got back on the horse last week, and a clean sheet and a decent enough results. But in the grand scheme of things, you're looking to win that game, really. It's at least steadies the ship. So he'd be really disappointed. And it's the further you go, the longer you go without winning games, the more the pressure gets piled on the management and players. And at this time of the season, you look what happened to Bohs, you'd fear from a little bit up there, especially with as we said about the relationship with Pat Finnan and Alan Reynolds. Stevie isn't his appointment, the new chairman's appointment. So, is there a relationship there to give him time? You'd like to think and hope so, but yeah, they need to get results fast.
And Drogheda, if they can start getting the results, well, I should say, if Drogheda can match the results with their performances, they'll actually be okay. Kevin Doherty was kind of frustrated last week that they lost against Sligo Rovers when they really had the chances to at least get a draw out of that. I'm sitting very close to the Treaty fans. They're shouting uncomplimentary things towards one of the Cork City players. I do hope that's coming out on the microphone, and I kind of don't hope it's coming out on the microphone. No, they're not talking about you, and I don't think they're talking about me, although some would say it would be an accurate description. For Drogheda United, I don't want to overpraise them for losing last week. The Sligo Rovers went and won the game, and I think in my post-match podcast afterwards, I probably concentrated on Drogheda too much, but they should be okay given their level of performance if they can turn those performances into results. Is that fair?
Yeah, they performed really well up in Derry, and it looked like they were going to continue their form from last season, and kind of just tailed it off a little bit. Really naive against Bohs. Kind of some of the goals they conceded, I think it was Bohs anyway, the goals they conceded, just balls into the box, really easy goals to concede, and I'm sure Kevin will be pulling his hair out, but listen, you just don't want these moral victories to turn into sob stories either, where you're going, great performance, we didn't pick up anything, because the rest of the lads in the league are picking up points as well, so you don't have to tailor off at the end too early, and then it's a hard enough climb back up. But no, I think judging by the performances, they'll be okay, and they just need a win under the belt sooner rather than later.
Okay, Barry Murphy, formerly of St. Pat's, Shamrock Rovers and Bohs, thank you very much for joining us on the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast. As I speak to you, it's pre-game between Treaty United and Cork City here in the Markets Fields. Are you going to check it out? Are you going to watch any of the games on LOI TV?
Yeah, I think I'll watch that one actually. It's probably the game, obviously, without the Premier League games, it's the game of the weekend. So yeah, I'll definitely tune in.
Okay, Barry, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Oisin. Enjoy the game.
Barry Murphy speaking to the Extratime.com League of Ireland Voice Notes podcast, a Voice Notes podcast that doesn't have any voice notes in it tonight. Let's run you through what happened in the First Division. Athlone Town 3, Longford Town 3, Bray Wanderers 3, Wexford 4, Cove Ramblers 1, UCD 2, Finn Harps 0, Kerry 0 and Treaty United 0, Cork City 0. Now what does that mean for the table? Cork City still on top, but only 3 points clear of Treaty United. They could have been 6 clear of Treaty United had they won. Finn Harps in third on 11 points, UCD 4th on 9 points, Athlone Town 5th on 6 points, Wexford 6th on 6 points, Cove Ramblers 7th on 5 points, Bray Wanderers 8th on 4 points, Kerry 9th on 3 points, and Longford Town have got their first point of the season. Granted, they've only played 3 games. They're on 1 point. What's coming up over the weekend as you listen? Well, obviously the Republic of Ireland against Belgium. But in the All-Ireland Cup, there's a lot of games tomorrow. At 5 o'clock in Group A, it's Peamount United against Linfield. At 6, it's Cork City against Wexford. At 3 in Group C, it's DLR Waves against Crusader Strikers and Treaty United taking on Shamrock Rovers at 5 o'clock. That's here where I'm coming from in the Markets Field. That City Wexford game I referred to, by the way, is in Group B. In Group D, at 7 o'clock, Sligo Rovers host Galway United. Let's fast forward to next Friday because the Premier Division is back. Derry City up against Galway United, Drogheda meeting St. Pat's, Shelbourne taking on Dundalk, Waterford up against Sligo Rovers, and Shamrock Rovers take on Bohs. On Friday night in the First Division, Bray take on Cove Ramblers, Cork City welcome Athlone, Kerry take on Wexford, Longford Town are up against UCD, and Treaty United take on Finn Harps. That's all coming up next Friday in the League of Ireland. Right, that's it from the Markets Field, where we had something different tonight, given that there was no Premier Division. But still, we talked a lot of Premier Division. As always, you can get in contact with extratime.com through all the usual social media channels, and you'll be able to find the email on the website, where you'll also find all the match reports from last night's well, I presume you're listening on Saturday, from last night's First Division games. You can get me via @Oisin Langan. Don't forget to tune in to Luke Jordan during the week with the League of Ireland, the Extratime.com League of Ireland podcast. And if you haven't heard it, check out the one that was released on Friday, the podcast he did with Stephen Beattie. It's a great listen. It's a fantastic listen. Right, that's it from me. I'm going to pack up and leave the Markets Field, where there was 3,146 people in tonight for a First Division game. Something is happening here. Something special is building at this club. And you could get a sense of that tonight. I've never sensed a positivity and an atmosphere like it around a Limerick League of Ireland venue in any of the iterations of the various clubs there has been. I can't quantify what it is in words, but it's definitely happening. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.